Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined by Brian Leonard, and we're going to break down Stanford at Notre Dame. Brian, this one's going to get a lot of attention this week. You got Stanford that came into the season with a lot of hype. Pac-12, obviously, a lot of people saying that that conference is 4 teams deep with national championship contenders. And then we've got Notre Dame that every year there's talk about Notre Dame, but it's been a while since they've really been in the actual discussion for a national championship. And right now we're sitting at a team that's in the top 10, currently ranked 9th, and they're undefeated. And this is going to be a game that's going to go a long way in determining if they're for real or if they're pretend. And this is going to be my free play. I'm going to say to you, public perception right now is more on Notre Dame because they're off to the 4-0 start. They're scoring 30 points or more in all of the games. And Stanford, who was supposed to be dominant, is 3-1, but they lost to USC and they were life and death on the scoreboard with Washington.
Yeah, you talk about Notre Dame ever since losing that national championship in really ugly fashion to Alabama, and unfortunately I was on the Irish in that game.
I was with you. Yeah. I literally was with you.
You actually was.
Oh, yeah, we were watching that game together.
Yeah, there's more.
I'll never watch a national championship game with you again.
One of those times you spend more time eating our food than watching the game. Yeah, the Irish this year have some things that they hadn't had in the past. Now, in the past, they lived on their defense. They've always had a really good defense. But the quarterback coming back, Golson, this year, he's been excellent. I mean, he sat out last year with some off-the-field problems. But they have a team this year that I happen to think is a little bit underrated. You say to a lot of people, I think it's common knowledge. When a team plays on national TV every week, chances are they're going to be a little bit overrated. But I think because they've underperformed the last couple of years, I'm not buying into the overrated situation with Notre Dame. And my concerns with Stanford is they're just so conservative. I mean, you talked about that game with USC. They should have won that game.
I was on USC in that game, and I will take the win, and I cashed the ticket, but I will agree with you, Stanford should have won that game.
Yeah, it's just a situation with them right now. If they're in a tight game, Stanford's right there. Stanford's a well-coached team, even though they are conservative. But if they happen to fall behind in a game, which really hasn't happened yet, will they have the ability to come back? Now, they are playing a pretty good offense here in Notre Dame. We talked about them averaging 30 points a game. My concern is if the Irish get out to a 14-0 lead, what will Stanford do?
That's a good point, but I'm going to play devil's advocate, as I like to do, and because this is my free play, and I'm going to be on the Stanford side. One of the things that I look at, and the reason why I say the public perception, is because of the ranking. We're going to start with the ranking. You've got the 9th ranked team playing I believe they're the 14th ranked team, and the 14th ranked team is favorite on the road. I'm old school. I know the new wave of handicappers, everybody believes they're smarter than the odds makers. And I know you have to have that mentality. And I, like everybody else, think I am smarter than the odds makers, but I still give the odds makers more respect than most people do. If you've got a ranking saying one thing, which the ranking is made up of coaches, sports writers, people that watch the games, they say one thing. When Vegas puts a number up, they're saying something totally different. And to me, I'm going to back the opinion of people that bet for a living and set numbers over people that watch games and talk about them.
I'm going to disagree on one point. You talk about the lines makers putting up a line. The lines makers put up a line to open. The betting markets move that line. So it's not the lines makers. By the time the game goes off, the lines makers have nothing to do with where that line is. It's the betting public. So what you're saying is, and I agree with this point, the betting public knows more about the guys who watch the game and the talking heads on TV, and frankly, just about everybody out there. And you don't get that unless you follow the betting markets.
Well, and we'll talk about that move. This game opened up Stanford 1. I saw a couple rogue picks around, but moved to Stanford 2 pretty quickly. I have been of the belief over the years, and you're a perfect example of that. You're camped out at the Wynn on Sunday afternoon waiting for these numbers to pounce on them. I don't think John Q. Public is down at the Wynn on Sunday looking at these opening numbers. the first tick on this game was to the Stanford side. And I believe that's the smarter people.
Well, that wasn't me. I didn't bet them. But that is one person's opinion. When you're taking a bet, in the Wynn, for those that don't know, the Wynn is the first one in Las Vegas to open up. In fact, all this year, they have been, along with Cantor, the first ones to open up even before the offshores are. So when they're taking that first hit, they're taking it based off of power ratings. What I have learned is people compare their power ratings. You do your handicapping later on in the week. I mean, it's just, you just don't have enough time to do the power ratings, handicapping everything, watch the games, which we all do. So the first thing you're taking a look at is power ratings, and that's telling you that their power ratings have Stanford higher.
All right, well, let's wrap this one up because it is my free pick, and I'm going to be on Stanford. I believe they are the better team. They have one of the best, if not the absolute best defense in the country. In Notre Dame, yeah, they're rolling up points, but I'm sorry. Rice, Michigan, Purdue, and Syracuse doesn't impress me. The Michigan game when they beat them 31-0, yeah, at the time, second week of the season, that looked impressive. I'm sorry, what we've seen out of Michigan since, that game's not that impressive to me. And if you look at last week's game, Stanford against Washington, Washington was, the scoreboard says they were in the game. They were manhandled statistically in that game. Stanford, they didn't do anything yardage-wise. 81 yards rushing, 98 yards passing against that Stanford defense. And Washington came into that game scoring a lot of points this season. I think they slow down Notre Dame. And Brian said it, if it's a close game, that favors Stanford, absolutely. Notre Dame has not had a test yet. How is Notre Dame going to react when they're punched in the face in a game, which this physical Stanford team does to so many? I'm going to be on Stanford. I've got Stanford winning this one 27-17. That's my free pick. We're going to come back, wagertalk.com. We're going to head to the NFL next, and we'll preview a couple Sunday games.